Hello, welcome back. Well, I'm starting to think that I must be dealing with a work of fiction here today, because we're talking about a book today called The Ugly Daughter, and which is clearly not about you, Julia Legian.
Thank you. That's me.
That's you. You're the ugly daughter.
I'm the ugly daughter.
I find that very hard to believe. Please explain.
You haven't seen my sisters.
Oh, okay.
They all look like supermodels. Yes. Yeah.
But your childhood was pretty rough, though, wasn't it?
It was,
I've read your book,
Yes.
The Ugly Daughter. It is actually, it's not fiction. I'm joking. It's a true story and a harrowing, terrible story in some ways.
Yes.
Your parents were both quite abusive to you and your brothers and sisters.
It was tough to grow up with the parents that don't really want you, because my parents' older one is a little boy, and the reason they have 5 girls because they tried so hard to get a boy, and it doesn't really happen to me, but it happens to all my sisters too, and we all just come together and learn to deal with our parents, and whatever abuse that they given us, we just take it and just pray.
So you were growing up in Vietnam after the years of the Vietnam War.
Yes.
And the country was very poor. Your family was very poor.
Yes.
But when you speak about prayer, it was your grandmother that taught you to pray.
That's
wasn't
right.
she? But she was Buddhist, wasn't she? So how did that work?
Well, my grandmother, in my opinion, she's a living Buddha, because she's a very compassionate woman, and she doesn't discriminate. And basically, she's a Buddhist, but she also explained it to me that Buddhism is a way of life. It's not a religion. And she only believes in one God. And there's only one God in this world, and that's what we should look up to, and that's what we should believe into. And so during the first 7 years of my life, and I'm very grateful that my parents actually left me with my grandmother, because during that time, she taught me a few really invaluable life lessons, and that is, love, compassion, faith, and also forgiveness. And during that time, I get to learn all this. And so when she returned me to my parents, I kind of used these lessons.
You had a foundation built there in your heart of a prayer and more positive. Because she was the one who told you you were special, and maybe you never heard it from your parents, but you heard it from your grandmother.
That's right. It's every day. That's what she tells me, I'm special, and she called me her little princess. And she always reminds me that my purpose in life is to go out there and to serve others. So she always reminded me that whatever happened to me during the time I lived with my parents, I have to remember that it's just a test from God, and to see if I'm worthy of His work, and I have to live my life as an example.
Do you consider yourself a Christian? I mean, you believe in God, you pray, but you're not. Are you not a Christian? Or you are a Christian? Can you explain this to me?
I could say that I'm in between. I'm a little bit of Buddhist and a little, Christian, but I'm more leaning toward the Christian. The reason, because, like what I said, my grandmother explained it very clearly as a child, that Buddhism is just a way of life, and it's more about us learning to practice, compassion, and to help others and to serve others. And there's a Christian world, which is God, and there's only one God. And when we're in trouble with our life, we just only look up to one God. So basically, I can say that deep down in my heart, I'm a Christian, but I'm also,
But you have that Buddhist background and upbringing. It doesn't let go easily.
That's right,
yeah. And there's a lot of value there. I understand what you're saying. As I was reading through your book, I could see again and again there were some pretty intense spiritual experiences that you lived through, things that you saw. Throughout
my whole childhood, I always see things and hear things, and also witness in real life that, this curse. And it's also happened to one of our family members, which is my sister. And she almost died. And because my dad, he's, Christian, and he doesn't believe in any of these things. And when my grandmother told him that my sister been cursed and there's a demon possessing her, and he didn't believe her. So for the whole entire 3 years, that grandmother tried so desperately to save my sister and want to take her to see you could say, witch doctor and removed the curse. And Dad totally refused it and didn't let her until my sister, at the last breath, on her last breath, that just about, my parents just about to put her in the coffin. That's when Dad actually agreed to let my grandmother took my sister's body and took her to see the witch doctor and remove the curse. And she's now still alive, and
So I guess for Christians watching this, that's a pretty challenging sort of story, but it's the reality of what you went through.
That's right.
But also through your life, you've seen God come through for you again and again, like guiding your life. Can you tell us maybe just a couple of those key moments?
Yeah. So my whole entire life up till now, I believe that if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be here today anyway. And the whole life is just like a mini series, of miracles for me. And I remember the first time that when I was a child, and I wanted to go and see a cartoon called Little Mermaid. But when I finished the movie, I realized that it's quite dark, and there was no way I could walk back home.
You were a long way from home too.
Yeah, a long way from home, probably about more than half a day walk. And during that time, my country also at war with the Khmer Rouge, and a lot of kids and all that had been slaughtered. And I heard all this story, they tear them apart while they're still alive and smash them against the wall and all this thing. And here I am, I have fear kicking in, and I was severely, it's pretty much paralyzed with fear. And so I just collapsed down on the road, and I started to pray. It's about 10 minutes later, there was this man on a motorbike, and he just stopped right in front of me, and he actually was my first cousin, which is someone that I didn't know and I never met before. And that was my first experience with God,
I've heard you talk about, you said you had an experience that you say it transformed you, and you're never the same after that. What's that experience?
Probably when I reached about 14, 15 years old, because my life was so much tougher then, and the abuse is more severe. And so during that time, up to I was about 19 years old, I totally closed my door on God. And I was so upset with him, and I was angry with him, because I said that he abandoned me and he wasn't there for me anymore. So at some point I was suicidal. And a lot of time, like every day I wake up, the first thought in my mind is how I'm gonna die. I'm gonna kill myself today. Which way can I kill myself and make it more, less painless for me? But at some time I just had enough, and I just cry and I cry and I cry. And I just fell down on the floor, and I just cried for I don't know how many hours. And then at that moment I actually realized that how ungrateful I was to God, because I realized that if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have lived up to, that moment. So I closed my eyes, and I said sorry to him, and I told him that I was an ungrateful child. And
I think this is what we call repentance.
I was so ungrateful, and I'm sorry that I shut my door on him, and I really needed him now, and I wanted him to come back into my life. And so while I was laying on the floor, closed my eye, crying my head off, I saw this curtain of light, like a massive, imagine it's just like your whole entire life being covered by a dark cloud. And all of a sudden now you have a tiny opening with this light, slightly descended down. And it just went slowly down and down, down, and until it's penetrated into every single cell of my body.
Wow.
And at that moment I felt so light, actually lifeless. I still can feel myself laying on the floor, but it was weightless, and I feel so light, and I feel so happy. All of a sudden I was bursting out of tears, and I would laughter,
but happy tears this time.
Happy tears and laughter, and I didn't know why. So from that moment, all of a sudden I just feel like I was just being alive again. All this time, for the past 30 years of my life, I felt like I was sleeping, just like sleepwalking. And until that light came into my body, all the trouble and everything just totally melted away.
Wow,
Yeah.
it sounds very much maybe like what a Christian might call a born-again sort of experience. So, wow,
Yeah.
an incredible story, and that's an extra story. That's not in here, but that comes in volume
Part
2
two.
of the book, doesn't it? Which you're
Yes.
still working on.
Still working on.
But yeah, this is an incredible book. It will break your heart, but it will inspire you as well. And look, your journey's really interesting, and I can see that you are journeying towards God. He's touched your life in so many ways, and I'm really interested to hear, you know, how God continues to lead you in the future. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate that you allowing me to share my story with you today.
Thanks for being with me.
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
That was Julia Legian. Wow, what a story. We'll see you after the break.